If you've ever been pregnant or even just put a hand on a pregnant belly, you know the feeling. That little flutter, that then becomes a nudge, and pretty soon it's a full-on kick from inside. It feels like one of the most profound and mysterious parts of creating a life, but it turns out it is anything but random. Okay, let's get into it and uncover the incredible science behind every single one of those jabs and wiggles.
I mean, just think about that for a second. It really is a wild thought. That movement isn't just your own body. It's a completely separate person in there, with their own brain, their own muscles, their own skeleton, basically running their own little gym. For months, they're your closest neighbor, but at the same time, a total mystery. So, okay, beyond that kind of bizarre and, let's be honest, sometimes uncomfortable feeling, what's the biological point of all this? What is a fetus actually accomplishing with every kick and stretch? Well, it turns out they're not just passing the time. They are hard at work on two of the most fundamental construction projects imaginable.
First up, let's talk about the physical stuff, the actual construction project. Every single movement a fetus makes is a critical part of building its own body, brick by brick, from the inside out. They are, quite literally, their own tiny architect.
That's right. These aren't just little spasms or random twitches. Each kick is a targeted, crucial workout. When they push against the uterine wall, it creates these mechanical forces that are absolutely essential for telling their bones to grow strong and for sculpting their joints into the right shape. Without this constant workout, a healthy skeleton just couldn't form the way it's supposed to.
And this whole process starts way earlier than you might think. We're talking as early as 10 weeks. The fetus is already bending its head and neck. By 15 weeks, you've got this whole range of movements, stretches, little wiggles, the whole shebang. Now, most mothers won't feel those first flutters until a bit later, but the construction job has already been underway for weeks.
So, to figure all this out, scientists needed to see what was happening. They used this amazing technology called cine MRI. You can kind of think of it like a video MRI. It let them actually watch the fetus moving in real time and then use computer models to measure the forces. And what they found was, well, it was not what you'd expect.
You'd think, right, that as the baby gets bigger and stronger, the kicks would just keep getting more powerful. But nope, the data shows the force of the kick actually peaks around 30 weeks, at over 10 pounds of force, by the way, but then it starts to drop off. Why? Well, simply because the baby is starting to run out of room to get a good wind-up. But here's the really cool part. Even though the absolute force of the kick is going down, the mechanical stress on the skeleton, the thing that actually triggers bone growth, it keeps going up. How is that possible? Because as the space gets tighter, even a weaker push creates more pressure against the uterine wall, giving the bones the perfect resistance they need to keep developing. It's brilliant.
So this all comes down to this idea of mechanical stress and strain. And honestly, it's the exact same principle we see in our own adult bodies. When you do weight-bearing exercises like running or lifting weights, you're putting stress on your bones. That stress is a signal that tells your body, hey, we need to make these bones stronger and denser. That's how we fight off things like osteoporosis. The fetus is doing the very same thing, just before it's even born. And this really drives home just how vital all this movement is. In those rare, sad cases where a fetus can't move properly, the consequences are serious. We see bones that are thin and fragile, joints that don't form properly and can even fuse together, and a much higher risk for conditions like developmental dysplasia of the hip. It proves that movement isn't optional, it's essential hardware development.
Okay, so building the physical body is job number one. But that's only half the story. At the exact same time, the fetus is also its own cartographer. It's meticulously drawing a map of its own body inside its own developing brain, and this is just as mind-blowing.
So you have to understand, a kick is never just a kick. Every single time a hand or a foot moves and touches the wall of the womb, it's not just a physical workout, it's a massive burst of sensory information. It's data being uploaded directly from the body part to brain headquarters. And what does the brain do with all that data? It uses it to build something called a body map. It's essentially the brain's internal blueprint of itself. It's a detailed living map where specific clumps of neurons are dedicated to feeling and moving specific parts of the body. There's a spot for the right hand, a spot for the left foot. You get the idea.
It all works in this beautiful, simple feedback loop. The brain triggers a spontaneous movement, a kick. That foot then touches the firm boundary of the womb. That touch sends a sensory signal racing up to the brain, where a specific set of brain waves fires off. The brain basically says, aha, that feeling right there, That's the foot. And just like that, the map gets a little bit clearer, a little more detailed.
And we know this is happening because researchers actually measured the brainwaves of newborn babies, especially those born prematurely. They found that this brain mapping activity was most intense in preemies, whose brains are at the same developmental stage as a third trimester fetus. This is a huge clue that the final months of pregnancy are this critical, non-negotiable window for the brain to learn the layout of the body it's about to be in charge of.
I mean, this quote from one of the studies just nails it, doesn't it? Babies kicking in the womb are creating a map of their bodies. Those movements that seem so random are actually the very process of the brain learning what it is, where it ends, and how to control itself. It's building the foundational self-awareness it needs for everything that comes next.
So let's pull all this together. What's the ultimate takeaway from all of this incredible, silent, and tireless work that's happening in the womb? What is the lasting legacy of a kick?
I think the most important thing to get is that these two huge jobs, being the body's architect and the brain's map maker, they aren't happening separately. They are two sides of the very same coin. The physical act of kicking provides the data the brain needs for its map, and the developing brain, in turn, orchestrates the movements needed for that physical growth. It's one, single, elegant process of self-creation.
And the impact of this work lasts an entire lifetime. The way your joints were shaped in the womb can literally influence your risk of getting arthritis decades from now. The strength of your bones, your brain's basic map of itself, the groundwork for being able to walk and talk and interact with people. It all has its origins in these prenatal workouts.
And that's why the womb is such a unique and irreplaceable training ground. Inside, the baby is floating, free from the full pull of gravity, and it has this perfect responsive wall to push against for resistance training. And then at birth, boom, everything changes. Suddenly, they have to fight gravity in the open air. All that work they did in the womb was the specific prep course they needed for that dramatic transition.
So, it leaves us with this final thought, right? The next time you feel a kick or see a pregnant belly ripple and move, remember what you're really seeing. It isn't just a cute flutter or a simple reflex. It's the physical evidence of a human being actively constructing their own body and their own mind, from the ground up. It's one of the most complex, purposeful acts in all of nature, happening quietly, right in front of us.